Welcome everybody to the Power of New. We are your hosts, Mark and Julie Appleyard, founders of Anothen Global Ministries here in beautiful Charlotte, North Carolina.
Today, we're inviting you to join us in a new conversation around discipling nations through spiritual leadership principles that work at work. This interactive podcast will take you further and drive you deeper into exploring our Heavenly Father's always perfect love, as together we engage with real impact stories from kingdom marketplace leaders across the world.
And the Power of New podcast, of course, relies on the support of its listeners like you, so you can help us continue delivering this content by donating through the provided link. You'll see that on the ticker going along below at the bottom of the screen. And if you're a US resident or a US-based business looking to donate, your donation is tax deductible.
Today's guest has been a friend of Anothen for many years. He's currently serving with Youth with a Mission, or YWAM as we all affectionately know it, in Arco, northern Italy, where he focuses on training the next generation of leaders for missions. Having grown up in the Netherlands, Tom has brought his experience and enthusiasm to YWAM projects across the globe. His unique blend of passion, energy, and a grounded approach to life resonates deeply with those he leads and mentors. Beyond his professional endeavours, Tom treasures time spent with family and friends, reflecting his belief in the importance of community and relationships. Deeply committed to his new wife, Janelle, Tom balances his professional life and ministry with a love for action sports and mountain adventures. His devotion to worship and the significance of the cross is central to his life's mission. Tom van Baardewijk, welcome to the Power of New.
Thank you guys so much for having me. What a job.
Indeed.
Great to be with you, mate. And northern Italy, my gosh. Now, I hear that part of the world is, let's just say, it's probably right up there with one of the nicest parts in Europe, and if not the world.
I mean, of course, I'm very biased, but yeah, it is. No, it's beautiful. Have you ever heard of the Lake Garda or the Dolomites or the Alps? And that's pretty much where we are. Our house is probably a 30-minute walk from the lake. And it's amazing. The summer is just not really kicking in quite yet, but it's good because it's going to be very hot. So we're enjoying the cooler days as long as it lasts.
Now you and I, we first met in the mountains, in the Alps, but on the other side.
Yeah, that's right. Right in Switzerland. Man, that was a fun week, Mark. Man, we go way back, don't we?
Yeah, we stirred up a bit of holy mischief out there in Davos.
I was going to say, is that where you met, or did you meet before that?
No, that was where we met, and I'd met Tom's brother before that, and his wife.
Because I was going to say, how did you get connected to actually get out to Davos?
Jan and Annette, I think, was the connection point, and then he reached out and said, "My brother is with YWAM in Davos, and they're looking for someone crazy enough to go out there and spend a week talking about the Father's love." And he said, "I thought of you guys." Right before COVID. Right before the world shut down.
That's right. About a month
beginning
before.
Beginning of 2020.
Yeah, that was beautiful, Mark. I was there just a week with a bunch of snowboard bums in the mountain. Usually around very well-known business leaders, and then all of a sudden you find yourself with 20-year-old ski bums that don't even know how to shower themselves properly.
I felt like I was transported back in time. It was great. I've said to people before when the times have come to recount that particular sojourn, that I felt like it added about 5 years to my life. I just sort of absorbed all this youthful energy. It was great.
You did amazing. Honestly, I've not seen many people be so attentive and focused on the people in front of them for such a long period of time. Like every time you were there at the round table, sharing your thoughts and everything that you wanted to give, you were just a well of life. And that's also how I know you, Mark. Like you're such an amazing leader and encourager and father of many, honestly. And yeah, I think it's really right to honor you and thank you for your friendship and the way you've been speaking into my life and kicking my butt when it needed to be kicked, but also, blessing me with many encouragements. So thank you so much for being real with me and really bringing me into that manhood that I needed to enter. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you. And certainly it has been a real joy and honor to walk this journey. I mean, the fresh insights that you bring, the perspective you bring, and together with your wife, Janelle, who I'm just getting to know, and Julie's just meeting and just getting to know, but just know already a lifetime of just relationship building together. You guys bring so much to the body of Christ and a perspective that I think is very unique, particularly around the subject matter that we've been chasing after here at the Power of New. And that's one of the joys that we've had, is just going, okay, who are people that we know and love and trust that aren't theoreticians but are practitioners in their space, and then have a conversation around things that typically only get spoken about from behind pulpits or in Bible study booklets. What if we just open up really honest conversations around these subjects, wrestled with some tensions? So your name was right up near the top of that list, Tom, because we again just know what you carry, and that it's not just theory to you. A lot of your theological understanding is hammered out on the anvil of real life and with real people. So excited for this conversation.
Yeah, definitely. The big thing that stands out to me, because most of our listeners will know that we are talking about, and this conversation, this ongoing conversation, is about discipling. I do English, and sometimes I don't do English very well either. So I'm always in awe of people who know how to speak more than just their native tongue. That's amazing.
And I'd actually give him 6, because I've heard him say some words that sound just as Aussie as you and I.
Oh, okay. Well, Aussie is definitely its own language. So, okay.
You spent time out there, didn't you, Tom?
Yeah, just 5 weeks in Byron Bay, and somehow the accent somewhat stuck, which is really strange. But most of the time, when people guess where I'm from, it's New Zealand, Australia, or South Africa, and I'm very far away from those countries. So,
so tell us a little bit about yourself and how it is that you ended up in a place like Northern Italy, because you have worked and served across a swathe of nations.
Yeah, it's true. So being born in Rotterdam, or close by Rotterdam, pretty much Rotterdam, let's be honest. It was a joy. I loved living there. South Holland is a very progressive place. We think clear. We are raw people. We say things as they are and as they come. So that's really very much in my DNA. And then actually right before I turned 10, we moved to the countryside in the Netherlands, which is also really beautiful, but a different kind of people. And I couldn't quite find my go there. And I always said that was my first identity crisis when I was 9. I was like, man, the people here are just so different. Do I even fit in? And then I ended up studying in Utrecht, and which is the 4th city in the Netherlands, right smack bang in the middle. And then towards the end of my studies, I headed a little bit towards the burnout, and at the same time I had a taste of missions. So I knew, okay, I got to quit my master's. I started working part-time, and then picked up some more shifts. I'm trained actually as a teacher, elementary school teacher, and in that time the summer was coming up, and I was like, what am I going to do next year? Am I going to restart my master's of educational science? But I didn't feel very motivated, and then at the same time I was like, I'm 22, like I'm not going to work full-time as a teacher quite yet. Like, that doesn't seem right. I can do that for the rest of my life. So in my heart, I was like, I'm going to go abroad. And then through prayer and sharing my different dreams with friends, which one of my dreams was to spend the full season snowboarding and going after that passion of mine. Another one was doing volunteering work. I really wanted to go to South Africa. And then I shared that, and somebody's like, why don't you do a DTS, a snowboard DTS? And it's like, what? Like I had heard of DTS.
Which is for
For the uninitiated, that means
discipleship training school.
Yep, with
It's an
YWAM.
entry-level program for YWAM. So anybody that wants to join Youth with a Mission will do a DTS. But it's an amazing program. I'm sure we'll touch on it a little bit later as well. But found out about this snowboard DTS because, as I said, I didn't really want to do DTS because some of my people back home had done it, and they seemed to be this crazy spiritual after, not with 2 feet on the ground. And I was like, being from Rotterdam, I was like, that's the last thing I want. I want to stay with 2 feet on the ground. Let's just keep it real. But then I found this one DTS in Davos in Switzerland, and turned out the Irish, they always went to South Africa. So it's like, okay, 2 ununifiable dreams the Lord just combined. And
There you go.
never been to South Africa because they changed the plan, but there you go. That's how I ended up in missions. Yeah. And then during my DTS, I saw what the staff were doing. It's like, this is amazing. This is what we be doing. Just working with young people that want to be there, that have a passion for Jesus, that are real people, that are very exciting, full of life. It's like, okay, these are the kind of people I want to work with. So I stayed on staff, and then after my season there ended, and meeting many different people. There was one family that was also Dutch, working in northern Italy. That when my season in Switzerland came to an end, invited me over. It's like, why don't you come and work with us? So I did that. In the meantime, got to know my wife. So after half year in northern Italy, moved to Amsterdam, where she was working with YWAM for about a year, and then moved back here in October 2022.
And you had a little layover in northern Norway as well.
Yeah, we were in Ålesund. We actually did a second level school with YWAM called the School of Worship. So that was very, very nice. And that's also right at the tail end of that, we got engaged.
Lovely.
Just incredible. Yeah. So with all of that, I mean, that exposure to different mindsets and different perspectives and different subcultures and demographics. I mean, you've been immersed in so many different things, and now you're immersed in a deeply Catholic area as well. So again, you know, that is quite different to say somewhere like in Norway, which is much more Lutheran. You got all sorts of backgrounds and exposure there. As you look at that, Tom, and you're committed to mentoring and developing young leaders, can you share what spiritual leadership means to you? Because you've used the word leaders and leadership and that, you know, several times even in this conversation, and we know you to be a leader of future leaders. What does spiritual leadership mean to you?
Sure. Mark, you always ask such good questions. No, honestly, I think leadership is all about going low and showing other people the way, by sharing your heart and sharing the process you're on, by being really raw and being really real and saying, hey, I've been in a similar situation. Let's walk this together. And it's not so much just look at me and follow me, but it's more like, hey, let's go low together, and why don't you stand on my shoulders, or how can I help you? Ask good questions, and let people also discover that path that you have been able to discover yourself, and just be close and be close to them, and be close and ready for when they're there, they're like, hey, lead me. But I found out most people don't ask, hey, lead me. that would be easy, because then you have the permission to just fully go for it. But yeah, more than that, it's just doing life together, inviting people to be part of it, and through that, growing and learning together.
So it's an interesting point you just raised. That there's been a shift that we're noticing, and I'm interested to know if you're seeing it where you are as well. Is that there seems to be a shift among a younger generation that says, actually, we recognize we need mentors. We recognize we need leading. We recognize we need that. Is that becoming true of your experience, or is that still something that you go, yeah, that's a very rare thing to find?
No, definitely seeing that more in the young people that come to also our organization, our base here in YWAM Trentino, that they're hungry. And when they start sharing stories, they're there and they're like, tell me more. Tell me more about this. And people that call me and it's like, Tom, I'm struggling. I recognize like you've been through a similar situation. Can you give me some input? Give me some advice? Yeah, it's really very much relational. Yeah. What I'm noticing is that young people, they go look for truth and they go look for authenticity. And yeah, the hungry ones, they will come and they will say, hey, I found authenticity. I found your life to be real and raw. Show me.
Yeah.
Show me how to live.
Yeah, that's
great. How do you deal with this? Yeah.
So, Tom, about how many young people do you get in a DTS group? About how many do you work with at a time?
Yeah, it's around 15, I would say, 10 to God. So there's 12 weeks, usually 12 weeks of lectures, really diving in who is God, what is missions, who are you in God, who is Jesus, what does it mean, what does the cross mean? And then afterwards, there's a 2 to 3 months period where we go out. We call this outreach, and we go out into the nations and try to connect with local missionaries and share God's love with the people that might have never heard, or the people that need to be reminded, or the people that have grown up in a very religious home but actually have never fully known who Jesus actually is.
Right.
You use the term authenticity, Tom, in terms of determining truth. That really jumps on my radar. I remember back in the mid-90s, I don't know how I ended up in this particular place, but I was someone had invited me to hear this world-class marketing professor. And one of the things he was saying was sort of at the main height of postmodernism was when this guy was there. So postmodernism, relativism, all of that, this is how we determine truth by what's true for you is true for you, what's true for me is true for me, da-da-da. And he come in and he said, I believe that ship is about to sail. People will soon determine truth. There will be a generation that determines truth by saying, show me what's authentic, and I'll measure that to be true. So hearing you say that, I heard that, what's that now? Gosh, 30 years ago in Australia, in this place that I really didn't have any business being at this particular place. But that one thing really sat in me. Yeah. So a question I've got, because it is, I think you're right on it. I think that's exactly right. This is how the truth is measured today. Here in America, we're going through the next phase of election series cycles and all of that in November, and you got all these people vying for your attention. This term of what is authentic is harder and harder to find. It's hard to provide something authentic for somebody unless you yourself are authentic in your own experience. Tell us, how do you foster a relationship with God that is authentic for you to release into these places where people look and go, I know that's true?
Yeah. Honestly, just be real. Be real with the Lord. Mark, everybody that I know, you're one of those people that have really taught me that. Just bring your messiness to God. God is not afraid of our dirt. God is not afraid of our mess. I mean, he became dirty to become one with our mess, So, and then to clean us up again. That's in his nature. And in that, what I've recently been really learning personally as well is embracing my emotions. That men out there, we got emotions. I have to tell you, I'm on the journey. Yeah, people always say men have feelings, but they don't have emotions. But we do have emotions.
Yep.
more than just hungry and angry.
Hungry and angry.
That's okay. I can be angry with God and even allow him in that anger and say, God, like, why am I angry? What's going on? And then listening and him really speaking into that and never coming with a condemning voice like, Tom, you can't be angry, because that's not who God is. He really sees us and knows us. And, yeah, that's very, very recently allowing the Lord to know me, and even allowing the Lord to teach me who I am. Just these really deep, tough conversations that are at the same time really beautiful. Just to have with the Father and say, Lord, I don't get this part. I mean, literally, when you can imagine the kind of conversations I'm having with the Lord, is like, man, God, this why even today, why is my wife not a little bit more like me? That would make life so much easier.
You know the conversation she's having with the Lord, don't you?
Yeah,
Why is my
exactly.
husband not more like me? It would make life so much easier.
Yeah, exactly. And then the Lord just speaking is like, no, Tom, like, she's perfect for you. This is a match made in heaven, and you allowed me to bring her to you, and you said you did good. You did good choosing her and saying yes to her, and just hearing that from God makes life so much easier and more enjoyable, because I'm like, okay, God says this, so who am I to doubt that? And that goes across the board. Like, yeah, it's really beautiful when we can converse with the Lord and say, Lord, what do you think about this? Or how do you see me, God? And then once God starts speaking, those are truths that will never disappear because God said it.
Yeah.
Who am I to disregard that?
We've spent a lot of our conversations, Tom, and Julie was a part of this when we were in Davos, around this subject matter of the love of the Father. Now, I can't speak for Julie, I can only speak for me, in that when I first became a believer, that was language we didn't hear. We heard God loves you, but you didn't get anything around this idea of the Father's love. Excuse me. I'm interested to try and understand a little bit more and a little bit deeper as to how his love particularly has shaped and changed your leadership, and how you create spaces for young leaders to come into to encounter his love as well. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah. It's good. It's a really good question, because that's where the rubber hits the road, isn't it? Like, once we experience the love of the Father concretely, we become different people. And honestly, I want to make that really practical. When some situation rubs me the wrong way, can I find a moment to just pause in that moment and ask, Lord, what is your perspective on this? And often he gives me way more grace than I ever thought I could have in the situation. Or he gives me a really clear insight. It's like, yeah, no, Tom, actually, you're right. You should speak out, because this is against what I want. Or he said, Tom, you need to humble yourself. Like, you are very critical and you are being Pharisaic right now, and that's not how I made you to be. And I think that's the love of a father, like a good father. It says even in scripture, disciplines his children. And I believe that's just in a one-on-one conversation we're having with the Lord all the time. At least that's what I'm trying. I'm not there yet, and I guess it would be a journey all the way into eternity to have that ongoing conversation, but one step at a time. But and honestly, in that, like, when I'm also conversing with young leaders, just have the one ear open to, Lord, what are you saying? Should I say something about this? Where are you leading? And him also often giving me the grace, like, no, Tom, like, this thing, it's not time to go there. Don't go there. And trusting the Lord in the timing, also what things to address. And even in that, honestly, the amount of times that I share something. I've had this many times also in DTS. I'm really sensing something the Lord is saying for my students that I'm mentoring, or for my leaders that I'm mentoring. I'm like, they don't get it, Lord. They don't get it. And literally a month later, they're like, Tom, you never believe it. You never believe what the Lord was saying to me. This is revolutionary. I've never heard this before. And I'm like, oh my God. I've heard so many times. So I think that it's also humbling. It's like, okay, the Lord knows what needs to be brought up where. And I just get to play a little part in that. But in the end, it's the Lord discipling the people and not me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we just get to plant a little seed that they don't even notice that seed has been sown or that it's fallen. But the Lord will bring it to fruition. He will make it grow. So yeah, I think that's good for most of us to hear, especially the older generation that have been, we've been brought up, because a lot of what you've just said flies in the face of what we've been taught is, biblically, we're meant to confront people if we know that they're sinning. We're supposed to confront the brother. We're supposed to confront the sister who's sinning and, do all of that stuff. But so many times to go there yet. And something in me wants to go, but Lord, your word says that I'm supposed to do this. So what do you mean it's not time to go there yet? But learning to trust that he knows what's going on in that person's life and where they're at and what seeds need to fall and what seeds don't right now.
Yeah, exactly. And that also comes back to the authenticity again. Like, maybe you don't know the person enough, or they don't know you enough, that if you would say something, actually it's breaking relationship more than anything else.
There you go.
Yeah,
that's good.
And I think there's a lot of wisdom in that. If you're a business leader that's watching and listening today as well, these are some really key things, because we think in business, you got a bottom line, you got the vision, or you got your shareholders, you've got whatever. We've got to hit these targets, these metrics. Therefore, we've got to get these people to do these things in this order. And therefore, they have to learn A, B, C, D, and E. And while there may be some obvious things that people do need to learn to do a task or whatever, actually spiritual leadership is as Tom's referring to right here, and you're sharing, if I'm hearing right, is to actually sit back a minute and pause and go, Lord, what I see in front of me seems to tell me that they need to know A, B, and C. Is there something else, or should I not have to focus on that? And is there something else they need encouragement in right now? Would that be right? Is that what I'm hearing there?
Yeah, I think for me it's more of an authenticity. I like what Tom's saying about the authenticity. It's the you don't want to break relationship by treading on ground that is not ready to be sown yet. Yeah. Like, the ground has to be ready, right? I don't know that metaphor really kind of carries what I'm trying to say, but I think that authenticity is really important. But my authentic relationship with the Lord needs to come through first.
Yeah.
Because otherwise I have no authority to say anything to anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's the fortunate thing that's happening now also in the world of Christianity. Now I'm treading on thin ice.
Tread away, Tom.
We're not scared of a little bit of thin ice.
But you see, in authenticity, exposed left, right, and center, and people preaching one thing and the other thing is happening. And I'm not saying that I am not that, but exactly I'm saying, like, my life's messy, and I'm not afraid to show it, because I think being a disciple of Jesus is messy. Like, who are we trying to pretend that our lives is not a mess? And of course, like, we're cleaning it up with the Lord, and the Lord is gracious with us, but that's being authentic, I think. Like, just also allowing people into your mess and being like, hey, I don't get it all together in this moment. Can you pray for me? Or I'm struggling. I'm struggling with this. Right. Having a joyful attitude. And I think that's really what's what it's time for. And in that sense also, I really feel like even the term spiritual authority is really lost its flavor, because we need to meet each other face to face and not
good, Tom.
top down. That's not discipleship.
Yeah, that's a good word. We experience that in community. The need for community, the standard Western model of church has got a lot of good things that it does, and it does a lot of things right. What seems to be being diluted, however, is authentic community. And it's not just we sat around in a room and did a Bible study together, but where we genuinely go to the depths of life together. And where if we've got an issue, we've got a problem, we know we're in a safe place, we can just share it, and we're not going to be judged and cast out. We've got people that will come alongside and be able to go, I'm going to pray for you, I'm going to love you, I'm going to walk this through with you. And that just seems to be that really is the secret source of the kingdom, is community. But we don't get that unless we have this authentic connection, this sense of being real together. And I think that's a really powerful thing that you've said there.
Yeah, it's true, man. That's it. Community is huge, eh? I think everybody's looking for community, and if we don't find it, we're going to go find it somewhere else.
Right.
Yeah, look for it in all the wrong places.
Yeah.
There's plenty of groups out there that will say, you belong with us. Come on in. Come a little closer, said the spider to the fly. They all the right language, all the right things. Again, here we are in an election year. And I listen to the rhetoric of the candidates, and a lot of it is this sense of, we are with you, we are, this we belong together almost kind of language. And I sit there going, I'm not so sure about that. When I look and listen and watch and learn, and yet in community, this is what we need. It's what we desperately long for, because we belong together, we belong connected. That's who we are. Now, I want to shift questions a little bit here around this concept of discipling nations. We joked we don't speak other languages apart from Australian and English. But what I do know is that when I do learn words from different languages, it causes me to see things, a slightly different way, in a broader way, in a broader understanding. That, coupled with the fact that you are exposed to many nations through YWAM, both in your own leadership with people coming under you, as well as the places that you've been, and you've been able to release the love of God into different countries. I'm really interested to see what your definition would be of this. How would you define discipling nations? What to Tom, what does it mean? What does it look like? Well, that was good. We said that in years.
Wow, that's beautiful. Yeah, it's such a good question, eh? It comes from Matthew 28, where the Lord says, go forth and make disciples of all nations. And honestly, to be honest, it's one of those questions are like, I'm not an expert. But what I have to say is, we need to shift away from thinking about what projects do we do so the nations are discipled. What programs should we run? Because that's not how Jesus did it. Jesus didn't run a program. Jesus didn't run a project.
I like this
he
guy.
did life with real people. And honestly, that's this, in my mind, how do we disciple nations? Like, well, go meet the people and talk with them. Get to know them. Get to know their story, get to know their life. And then, I mean, if Jesus changed the world through investing 3 years and 12 people, what should it tell us about our approach, Let's move away a little bit from projects and measurable, attainable goals and move towards relationship and value people over projects, because that's what Jesus did. He didn't run a project.
Yeah.
Look at that. And we didn't even prep him beforehand.
Did not.
Like, we didn't even tell him what we wanted the answer to be. But wow,
Yeah.
that is just so in line with our heart and what we've been trying to run in and learning and teaching and reflecting on, and all our conversations with the Lord are around the same thing. It's people over projects. It's about the relationship, not the transaction. It's about
And often what we've observed and also participated in as well is that the relationship is built by entering into the world with a person to start with. You know, I remember we were talking and with one of our people here, Hakan, it was Hakan Sandberg, and go back and take a look at that on the Power of New. You'll see this particular interview and conversation that we had, and he was talking about when he went to Albania. And he went there as a Swedish missionary to Albania just after the fall of communism. And it was, you know, he's ready to go and plant churches. And he had a little bit of business sort of acumen. He goes in there to try and plant churches and realizes that actually churches is not what people need. With an unemployment rate of somewhere between 50 to 60%, they needed to know how to get a job. That was what they needed. So what did he do? He went in there and started to help, you know, entrepreneurialism and things. And along that way is able to talk to people about Jesus, because he enters in with them into the real world and into the middle of their mess, and actually starts answering the questions they're asking. And in there is able to build an authentic connection. And
isn't that what the ecclesia was always meant to be and do? When Jesus said, "Be my ecclesia." Be my representatives, be kingdom ambassadors here on the earth, and go and do this thing. That's the picture of exactly what he meant. So our traditional church model, and I want people to hear me on this, I'm not slamming the traditional church model that we all know and love in this century, but it is a fairly new expression. Considering what the early Christians did, what the first disciples did, what Jesus's first idea of this was, our traditional church model that we're hanging on to so tightly is relatively new in the grand scheme of things, because that's what it's meant to be. Go into all the world and build relationships with people, get into their messy lives with them, show them your messy life, and let's figure this out together, how we love God in the middle of it all. So
that would be my definition of church.
Exactly.
What does it mean to be church? And honestly, planting churches, maybe that was what they needed, but maybe the definition of church was just a little bit slanted. And particularly what the Lord wanted his church to look like in Albania. And you look at the fastest growing churches in the world, which is Iran, if I'm not mistaken, and then second, you're not going to find a church the way we know church, but they are alive. And you're not going to pinpoint that to one leader saying like, this man planted all his churches, but it's just a group of believers that come together that get the message, and they get it so hardcore that like, I need to go share this message with others because this changed my life. And then they are the ones that are planting new churches. And I think that's way more what discipling nations look like. It's really just working with people and speaking truth, and then saying, from day one, you can do this. This is what we're called. I mean, you're not a disciple if you're not making disciples.
Right. And it says to a nation, I see you, and I want to learn from you, and I want to help release who you are as a nation. One of the things that we in a revelation of these last couple of years is going into places with a desire to hear the language of heaven for that nation. What does God treat, or a day or whatever, and to be able to go, and that is who you are, and we agree. And now you need a place at the global table. Your nation deserves to sit at this table because this is who you are. And it's beautiful to enter into those spaces and not smack people over the head with, okay, here's what you must need to know. No, to come in with, as you said before, Tom, to serve, to come under and to facilitate in a safe way this conversation where brothers and sisters of totally different backgrounds than us get to hear that language and that conversation from heaven and then go, oh my goodness, this is who we are, and really get that deep sense of resonance with God's voice to go, now this is what we need to rise up and become.
That's right.
And that is the church.
That is the church.
It really is now. And then in a way that makes sense for your nation, your history, your heritage, your culture, go and express that. Don't try and put some American or Western European or whatever cookie cutter thing to that. No, just go and be naturally who you are.
Come on. I love that. I love that. Yeah, why are people in Africa wearing suits to church? You know, what is that? That's strange.
It's very
they should
strange.
be wearing colorful, like they're
Exactly.
Why do we wear suits?
Right.
It's not who they are. It's just
right. But it flies in the face of what we know, right? You know, and that has some really deep meaning to it if we kind of dig and scratch beneath the surface. But one of the things that came out in that conversation, I said to her, it feels like, or what it feels like is for the last however many decades, yes, God's been preparing the bride, but it's like the bride has been in a similar kind of thing where Esther was taken into 6 months of cosmetic treatments and then 6 months of whatever other treatments before she was presented to the king for her one night with the king before she was chosen as Queen Esther, right? It feels like we're coming out of this decade of, yes, we've been prepared, we've been soaking in God's presence, all of that stuff, but now it's feeling like we're being invited into the private chamber where the bride's going to now be dressed and clothed for this, you know, grand cosmic wedding. There's a deeper intimacy, but there's a deeper sense of purpose, or, you know, it makes me emotional because I think about the wedding day. I think about getting dressed. I think about this whole, okay, well, now is the day. Now is the time. I actually get to put on all of this white stuff now and walk down the aisle and do this whole ceremony. It's feeling close. It's feeling very close. And the bride is in the chamber and being dressed now. We're not just in the preparation stages. We're not just planning the wedding anymore. It's the day. Like, now is the time. We're getting really, really prepared for this. Now, this might still take, you know, however many years, because God's timing is not ours. But yeah, I don't know.
I love it.
Just to take it
It's a good
deeper, take it a little deeper for a moment.
Yeah.
We're in the chamber. We're being dressed.
Yeah.
The bride is
That's right.
is not just being prepared, but she's getting dressed now, which means it's really close.
Yeah. Amen. Amen. Speaking of some evidences of that, Tom, one of the things we love asking people here on The Power of New is what their current, we use the word fresh-demony, a fresh story of what God has been doing in and through their lives. What's something that you can point to and go, hey, this is a fresh thing that I've been seeing God do as you've been stepping into these places, as you've been seeing the bride getting ready to walk down the aisle, so to speak.
Yeah. Wow, I'm still living like quiet from what you just said, Julie. That's a beautiful picture. Fresh testimony. I mean, there's one story that really is. I mean, we're living in it right now, literally living in it. We got married March last year, and then from that moment till we found our own home took 9 months. to actually find a house. And I'm sure actually many people can relate nowadays with the housing being kind of a crazy thing all over the globe, it seems. Yeah, it was extremely tough. But the Lord was really speaking very clearly, like, you will find something in October. You are not to find it online, and somebody's going to offer it to you. And we're like, Lord, like, we literally cannot do anything. Like, what are we cannot find it online. Somebody's going to offer it to us. How do we know who's going to offer it to us? And we'll get it in October. So we had only one thing left to do, and it was like make many relationships. And literally for half a year, I went to anybody and everybody. You can ask my wife, Janelle, she would testify of this. Any and everybody that I met on the street, I asked, do you have a house? It was an amazing journey because we got to meet so many people and got to be vulnerable with so many people. We're like, hey, we're here. We want to serve your nation, but we're in desperate need of a house. And October rolls around, and we actually have nothing. And the 30th of October, we are away for a training we're doing, and we get this call from a real estate agent saying, I might have a house for you. And we're like, no way. We're not even in the country. So our friends went and looked at it, and we decided to take it, and there were a few other people interested, and then we got it, and we found out about the house exactly in October. Somebody was offering it to us, and we did not find it online. So the Lord was really clear in the words he had spoken, and he came through. Yeah. And there were a few more words and a few of our desires. We're like, okay, this house is maybe not exactly what we hoped for. It only had one room. It's quite small. But the Lord's like, Tom, like, I'm teaching you to be grateful. And I'm teaching you to love little things. Yeah. And we fell in love with it. So we moved our stuff in the beginning of December, then went on a 5-week trip as you guys do.
Right.
Is ending up in Canada, where my wife is from, to celebrate Christmas. And we get back, and January is really where we start living in the place. And I love running. And I think it was the last week of January. We were living there literally for 3 weeks. I was running away from the house. And I really heard the Lord say, you won't be living here in May. And I was like, Lord, like, what? Tell me more. Like, what do you mean? It's very unclear. Lord, you won't be living here in May. Like, are we going to leave? Like, what's happening? So I was asking all sorts of questions. And now looking back, it's like, the Lord was as clear as it could be. You won't be living here in May. Like, it's very blatant. There was no guessing. So I hesitantly shared with Janelle. I was like, Janelle, like, I don't want to share this, but it's better to share it with you and just carry this together. I really felt the Lord say we won't be living here in May. And she was like, but we just moved in. We looked for a house for 9 months. We literally just moved in. We're really starting to like this house. But then we also said, Lord, if you want this to happen, you will make it happen. And in February, we were away again, funny enough, for the same training. We get a call from one of our friends saying like, hey, this house came available and we wanted to rent it as an organization for our students, but the landlord doesn't want to rent it out to an organization. So then we thought of you. Would you be interested in moving into this house? Because we told the landlord about you. You can have it if you want it. This is unheard of. Like, there's usually 50, 60 people interested in a house once it comes on the market. He said, we might be moving. Are you interested? But then it was such a vague story. And we're like, no, because the Lord said October and there's already a house. This is not the house. Turns out this was the second house the Lord had in mind for us. So, we moved in maybe a month ago. And it's absolutely amazing. It's double the size of our other house. And I really believe we love it so much because we really learned to love the little house that we had first. And
Wow.
I mean, our parents can stay here. My parents are coming Wednesday to stay for a few days, and
Yeah.
there's totally enough space for that, which is amazing. Such a God story.
I love it.
Awesome.
And I love the fact as well that it's not just a fresh testimony, but there's a lesson learned
Oh, yeah.
as well. Excuse me. Often we just like, oh my gosh, God did these things, and that's great, and then we move on. But
And
I
we
love how
forget to learn.
you've got that reflective heart that just goes, hey, there's some things here that I've been hearing from him to learn, and now how do I take that in? And I'm going to steward that in this next place and learn to love as well, because there is this process. And on the issue of housing, that was the case with us. We rented for 15 years, our first 15 years of our married life, we rented. And one of the things is we always wanted to leave a place better than we found it, even though we were renting it. We put our own money into the house to, I think, gosh, I can't remember how many houses there were. So many,
Like 15 or 17
there was something
or
like
something.
15 or 17 houses in that 15-year
About
process.
it was on average a house a year.
Yeah, it was, and up and all of those things. But it was that sense of we will honour again the gift of what's being given to us here. We'll walk it through, and as I look over time, how that's come back to us and come back to us and come back to us again and again and again. So it's great principles there, brother. Well, I tell you, I've got one question left, Tom, and this is arguably the most important deep spiritual question of the whole dang.
Of new. What was the last new thing you purchased online, and what was it for?
I think it's a toss-up between two things. I think actually it was for my my barber shop, my side little hustle, which is very non-professional and only for people within our community. But I got a new little combs, a cape, and a brush to brush out some
Look at you.
some
I'm going to call you Tom Scissorhands.
You cut hair. We didn't know.
Yeah. Oh, it's a great way. It's a great way to have some quality time with some dudes.
There you go.
That's great.
Perfect.
I did not know all these years. I did not know that about you. That is fantastic. So you've got some new clippers. You got everybody's ready. They're going to be lining up for the boutique barbershop experience, Tom.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Well, next time you come, I'll be happy. I'm happy to give you a cut, Mark.
Very good. I'll come with my hair long and my beard ready to trim.
That's great.
Good stuff, man. I tell you, it's been great here again at the Power of New, and with our dear friend Tom out there in Italy, northern Italy, working with YWAM. And of course, remember that the Power of New podcast relies on the support of its listeners like you, and you can help us continue delivering this great content by donating through the provided link. If you're a US resident or US-based business looking to donate, your donation is, of course, always tax deductible. Tom, it's been a pleasure, mate.
Yeah, for me too. Thanks for having me. You guys are great.
Thank you, and we'll look forward to seeing you out there in Europe or you over this stateside sometime soon. So remember, God wants to take you further and deeper into encounters with his always perfect love for greater impact, because he wants to love the world through you. God bless you guys. We'll look forward to seeing you here again next week at The Power of New. Stick around, Tom. Stay right where you are. We'll be with you again in just a second.